Hey everyone, a quick heads up. Most people who enjoy these stories haven't subscribed yet. If you're liking the content, consider subscribing and dropping a like. It truly supports the channel. And I'm glad you're here. Also, I'd love to know where you're tuning in from, so share your location in the comments. My name's Cal Henders, and I've been long-hauling reefer loads across the Midwest for more than 27 years. I've driven through blizzards that buried whole exits, tornado sirens at 3 a.m., and black ice that took better drivers than me off the road. I've seen things you can chalk up to exhaustion, bad luck, or just plain old highway weirdness. But what happened on I-80 near Des Moines that night, I still can't categorize it, and I sure as hell can't forget it. It was 12:14 a.m., late October, and the cold had that metallic bite it gets before the first real freeze. I was hauling a refrigerated load of produce out of Reno, aiming to make Chicago by morning. My rig, a 2016 Peterbilt 579 I kept clean enough to sleep in without socks, hummed steady beneath me. The weather had been clear when I passed Newton, nothing but empty interstate and the low vibration of the reefer unit cycling. My CB was quiet except for the occasional soft hiss of static. No chatter, no warnings, no company on the road except the glow of distant tail lights. Then the fog hit, not rolled in, hit. 1 second the night was clean, black, open. The next second, I drove straight into a wall of white so thick my high beams just bounced right back at me. It was like someone threw a blanket over the entire interstate. Fog isn't unusual out here, but this felt wrong immediately. It didn't spread, didn't drift. It dropped, solid and heavy, like I'd crossed into another place. I slowed to 50, hands tightening on the wheel, reefer hum steady, wipers tapping the mist. That's when I realized something was off. The fog wasn't just around me, it was keeping pace with me. I dropped another 5 miles per hour, watching how the fog reacted. It didn't thin, didn't break, didn't fall behind. Everywhere I drove, it drove with me, locked to the truck like I was hauling the fog itself. I checked the mirrors. Nothing but whiteness swallowing the road. No tail lights, no reflections. Just a soft glow, like light through frosted glass. At the very edge of my high beams, shadows flickered, thin shapes slipping through the fog. I blinked, leaned forward. Shapes, not shadows. Something tall, something long, something that didn't walk so much as glide. I told myself it was just the fog messing with depth perception. I've seen that trick before, distance bending, shadow stretching. But this felt deliberate. The steering wheel vibrated under my hands. Not from the road. From inside the cab, like the air had turned electric. Then something else hit me. The fog wasn't cold. You drive through late October Midwest fog, your windshield fogs up, your cab temp drops, your breath clouds. That's normal. But the temperature in my cab didn't change. If anything, it felt warmer, humid, almost like breath. Around mile marker 146, the road straightened. The fog thinned for just a second, enough for me to see maybe 100 feet ahead. And someone stood in the middle of the highway. A human silhouette, arms raised, not waving, not signaling distress, just raised like a warning or a surrender. I slammed the brakes, though not hard enough to jackknife. The tires hissed on the wet asphalt. My seatbelt dug into my shoulder. The figure didn't move. It just held its stance. Arms lifted, head tilted slightly, like it was listening to my engine. As I got within 50 feet, the fog thickened suddenly, like it surged around me, and the figure disappeared. Not stepped aside, not ran, vanished. The road was empty again. No footprints, no tire marks, no sign of anyone or anything. Just fatigue, I muttered, but my voice shook. I eased back onto the gas. The fog followed. 10 minutes later, my CB crackled. Not the way it usually does. Not the low fuzz of distant chatter. This was sharp, sudden, like someone flipping a channel from the inside of the cab. Cal, my name, spoken low, stretched, like someone exhaling it through water. I froze. Not many people know my voice handle, but this voice wasn't familiar. It wasn't male or female. It barely sounded alive. Do you copy? I didn't touch the mic. Couldn't. The CB hissed, then twisted into static so loud it rattled the overhead compartment. The reefer unit behind me cut out for half a second, just long enough for the truck to feel unnaturally quiet, and then kicked back in. That silence, I still feel it in my bones. The fog clung tighter around the truck, wrapping the mirrors, swallowing the rear trailer lights. My headlights began to pulse. Faint, like something was moving in front of them and I couldn't see it. My hands were sweating on the wheel. At the edge of the fog, something shifted. Not in front of me, behind me. The left side mirror twitched, not physically, but the reflection did, like something tall moved past the trailer, brushing the outline of the lights. I glanced right, movement there too. Fluid, sliding shapes, like silhouettes of people, but stretched, elongated by the fog. They slipped along the sides of my rig, keeping pace. I pressed the gas. They kept up. The reefer unit hummed harder, like the engine was straining against something I couldn't see. The air in the cab thickened with a metallic, electric smell, sharp enough to sting my nose. My arms prickled with goosebumps even though the cab temperature read normal. I looked in the center mirror and froze. The fog wasn't white anymore. It was dark behind my trailer, moving, churning, and inside that dark fog, shapes pressed against the edges, faces, or what looked like faces, forming for a second before melting back into the mist. One pressed forward long enough for me to see hollow eyes and a mouth stretched too wide. The mirror cracked, a sharp, clean line right through the center. That's when I floored it. I tore down I-80 faster than I should have in fog that thick. I'm not proud of the speed I hit, but instinct took over. Fight or flight and all that. When I finally reached a rest stop, exit 151, the fog peeled away instantly. Not drifted, not faded. It peeled off me in a clean vertical line, like I'd crossed an invisible barrier. The night was clear, stars visible, no trace of fog anywhere on the horizon. I parked, stepped out on shaky legs, and walked around the truck. No cracks on the exterior mirror, no distortion on the trailer lights, nothing physically wrong. But when I opened the cab door and looked into the mirrors inside, movement, not mine. Something shifting in the reflection, just out of frame. I shut the door and sat outside until dawn. I still run that route from time to time, but never alone and never at midnight. And some nights, when the CB goes quiet long enough, I swear I can still hear that voice whispering my name through the static. Name's Rick Mallory. Been driving the interstate for close to 3 decades. Hauling everything from frozen meat to electronics. I know the roads better than I know the back of my own hand. I know where every rest stop is, which way stations take forever, and which stretches of asphalt are safer to push speed. But there's a stretch near Joliet, Illinois that still gets under my skin. That night, I was hauling a refrigerated load to Chicago, trying to make a quick stop before dawn. My rig was a 2015 Freightliner Cascadia, all shiny steel and polished mirrors, reefer humming softly like a heartbeat. I had the CB on, mostly static, a few murmurs of other drivers calling in their locations. Nothing unusual. The time was just after 2 a.m. I'd been on the road for nearly 12 hours, fog creeping in patches and the air tasting of damp asphalt and ozone. I saw the rest stop on the right, a familiar landmark, a place I'd stopped dozens of times over the years. But tonight, from the moment I pulled in, something felt off. The sign was rusted. The neon lights flickered like they were dying, spelling out Joliet Truck Stop in uneven flashes. The asphalt was cracked and littered with weeds sprouting through the cracks, the usual rows of parked trucks missing entirely. My first thought was simple. Maintenance had shut it down. Nothing weird about that. I parked near the main building, cutting the engine, feeling the normal vibration and hum of the rig settle to silence. The cab smelled faintly of cold metal and lingering diesel fumes. I stepped out, expecting quiet. That's all. Midnight stops are never crowded. But then I heard it. Faint music, like a jukebox playing somewhere inside. The notes were soft, tinny, and old, like something from the 1960s or 70s. I froze, listening. No one was inside. The door to the diner creaked as I pushed it open. Rusted booths, broken chairs, dust layered thick across the counter. Nothing alive, no movement. Yet the music persisted, faint but real, echoing against the cracked walls. The jukebox itself sat there, unplugged, no chords anywhere. Yet the melody continued, repeating the same haunting line over and over. I shook my head. I told myself it was the acoustics, the wind perhaps, or my mind tired from 12 hours of driving. That's what truckers do, rationalize the weird. I stepped outside to get back into my rig, planning to just keep moving. That's when I saw it. The trucks I had parked next to were gone. Completely. Replaced by tall weeds and long grass curling up through the asphalt. The lot stretched endlessly in both directions. The streetlights flickered, and the edges of the parking area dissolved into fog, or maybe just emptiness. I approached my own rig, that at least was still there. Tires inflated, lights off, the reefer quiet, but the rest stop itself, everything else looked abandoned, forgotten by time, as if no one had been there for decades. I rubbed my eyes, convinced I had missed something. Maybe a detour had closed the lot. Maybe I was hallucinating fatigue. But the concrete under my boots felt real. The air smelled sharp and metallic, a faint tang of ozone, like the kind that follows a lightning strike. I climbed back into the cab, trying to shake the creeping unease. Engines started up. The reefer hummed. I pulled forward slowly, tires crunching on the overgrown asphalt. That's when I saw him, a man perfectly still in the middle of the lot, standing there like he belonged to the place. His posture was rigid, hands by his sides, face obscured by shadow. I glanced at the rearview mirror. He was reflected perfectly, watching me, not waving, not moving, just watching. I slammed the gas, my heart hammering, trying to rationalize it. Construction worker? Security guard? Some other trucker? But the lot was empty. No cars, no footprints, nothing. He didn't move. I tried to focus on the cab, the road, the tires on asphalt. But every glance in the mirror confirmed the same figure. Still there, unmoving, silent. I reached the edge of the lot. The weeds bent with the wind. The asphalt gave way to the interstate again. The man was gone, vanished like mist. No tracks, no sign of leaving. I drove the rest of the way to Chicago in silence. CB quiet, music and engine hum filling the cab. I stopped at the next rest area hours later. Everything normal, trucks, people, lights on. No sign of that lot, no trace of the figure. I've never stopped at that Joliet rest stop again. I don't know if it's gone, or if it was always like that, hidden beneath the surface of the highway somehow. Sometimes I think about it when I'm parked alone at 2 a.m., listening to a CB channel crackle, imagining that soft, tinny music. And sometimes, I catch a glimpse of a man in the rearview mirror, perfectly still, just watching, waiting. I never saw him move. I never saw him blink. But I know he was there, and that memory chills me more than any storm, any icy road, or tornado warning I've faced in all my years. Every trucker I've told thinks I'm exaggerating. Maybe I am. Maybe it was fatigue. But I know what I saw. Some places on the road don't want you to stop. And some people never leave. Name's Tom Grady. I've been running long hauls across the Midwest for over 20 years, mostly refrigerated freight. I know these roads like the back of my hand. I can tell you which mile markers have potholes, which overpasses catch the wind just right, and which rest stops are worth a quick shower. But there's one stretch in rural Iowa that stayed with me, long after I should have rationalized it away. It was a crisp late September night, somewhere past 11:30 p.m., and I was hauling a full load of produce from Des Moines up toward Cedar Rapids. My rig was a 2014 Kenworth W900, all polished steel and clean glass, with the reefer humming like a living heartbeat. CB chatter was mostly static, punctuated by the occasional call from a driver I didn't know. Nothing unusual. The sky was clear, muted stars overhead, and the highway stretched endlessly. Just me, the tires on asphalt, and the quiet vibration through the cab. I'd been driving straight through for hours, sipping lukewarm coffee and keeping the rig steady at 62 miles per hour. Cornfields lined both sides of the road, rolling gently under the moonlight. The air smelled faintly of rain on dry earth, with a metallic tang that always accompanies long runs in the Midwest. I had just passed mile marker 78 when I noticed something unusual on the horizon. A familiar blinking set of lights. I squinted, adjusting the visor. A way station. That wasn't unusual, this stretch has a few, but something about it didn't feel right. Usually, I'd see the standard green sign, the warning for the upcoming stop, maybe a few trucks queued. This one, it just appeared. Out of nowhere. I slowed, easing the rig down, expecting the routine stop. The asphalt seemed slicker under the tires, though the night was dry. The CB crackled faintly. A static I didn't recognize, just long enough to make me tense. The officer was standing under the harsh fluorescent lights of the station. His uniform looked normal at first glance, but as I drew closer, I noticed his face was pale, almost translucent, like someone had painted over a photograph with white watercolors. His eyes were icy, unblinking. He waved me in. I hesitated. Something in the way he moved was wrong, too smooth, almost gliding across the asphalt. My hands rested on the wheel tighter than usual, knuckles whitening. "Evening," I said. No response. Just the silent nod, and he handed me a clipboard. I glanced down. The papers were covered in numbers I couldn't parse. Digits that didn't make sense for weight, for time, for anything I'd ever seen. "Do these numbers mean something?" I asked. My voice sounded smaller than I expected in the cab. He leaned in, whispering, 10734, repeat. I didn't understand. Not the numbers. Not the way his breath smelled faintly of burning diesel, or the metallic chill brushing across my neck. I tried to pull the truck forward, to leave, but the road ahead stretched endlessly. No matter how much I accelerated, the pavement never shortened. The horizon stayed the same, the way station looming impossibly close. I checked my GPS. Nothing. Not a signal, not a marker. No station had ever existed here. I tried to back up. Same result. The cab felt heavier, the steering wheel vibrating under my hands. Not from the engine, not from the tires, but from something else. Something alive in the asphalt and the night. I swallowed hard. Rational explanations tried to surface. Fatigue, exhaustion, some optical illusion with the lights. But deep down, I knew this wasn't ordinary. I eased the rig forward, gripping the wheel like it might be my only anchor. The officer didn't move. His clipboard stayed pressed against his chest. I watched the moonlight reflect off his translucent face. Eyes icy, unmoving, unblinking. The wind whipped around the cab, even though the windows were closed. I smelled burning diesel mixed with ozone, sharp, electric, like a storm trapped in the night. Finally, I dared a glance past him, through the windshield. The road bent. Cornfields curved unnaturally around the asphalt. I pushed harder on the gas, telling myself to ignore the numbers, the whisper, the impossible road stretching forever. Then, just as suddenly as it had appeared, the station vanished. No lights, no asphalt bend, no officer, just the dark, empty highway flanked by endless cornfields. A faint trace of burning diesel lingered in the air, drifting past my cab as if mocking me. I glanced at the rearview mirror. Nothing, just the normal reflection of my trailer, the night behind me. I pulled off at the next exit, shaking, sweat cold on my back, the cab quiet except for the soft hum of the reefer. I checked my GPS. No way station marked. Nothing on the maps. Not a single report from other drivers about it existing. I drove on, trying to forget it. Tried to chalk it up to exhaustion, to fatigue, to a trick of the shadows. But I can still feel those icy eyes staring into me through the night. I can still sense the numbers whispered, the clipboard pressed to invisible hands, the impossibly long asphalt trapping me in that moment. Some stretches of road don't like you to pass through them. Some places don't like you to notice them. I've run that stretch many times since. Never at night. Never alone. And sometimes, when the wind whistles through the cab just right, When the CB goes silent, I swear I can feel that station blinking into existence again, somewhere on the horizon. Watching, waiting. Every trucker I tell about it thinks I'm joking. Maybe I am, maybe not. But I know what I saw, and I know it's still out there. Somewhere in the middle of rural Iowa, a way station that wasn't meant to exist, with a man whose eyes never leave you. Name's Eli Warren. I've been driving long hauls across the Midwest for more than 25 years, mostly reefer loads, mostly at night. I know the rhythm of these highways, the hum of tires on asphalt, the flicker of distant lights, the quiet cadence of CB chatter. You learn to trust the road, and in return, it keeps you alive. Most of the time. But there's a stretch in rural Wisconsin, near the border of Fond du Lac and Green Lake counties, that taught me something I couldn't explain, something I've tried to rationalize, but never could. It was early September. The sun had long since set. The time on my dash read 11:47 p.m., and I was hauling a refrigerated load of dairy products to Milwaukee. My rig, a 2016 Freightliner Cascadia, was running smooth, lights cutting through the night, tires humming on asphalt, reefer cycling quietly. CB chatter was minimal, just the static hum of distant channels. The cornfields on either side of the road stretched endlessly, shadows blending into the black horizon. I'd been driving for over 9 hours straight, fatigue creeping into my shoulders, coffee long gone cold in a thermos on the dash. The highway was quiet, open, perfectly straight for miles. Only the wind shifted against the cab, soft and constant, no more than a whisper in the mirrors. That's when I noticed it. A faint sound at first, almost imperceptible. A whisper. At first, I assumed it was the cab. Reefer hum, tires, wind rattling the mirrors. But it didn't stop. It grew a fraction louder. A soft susurration curling around the seats, brushing across my ears. I paused, gripping the wheel tighter. Probably fatigue, I muttered aloud. Long night, overworked, brain playing tricks. I kept driving. The whispering followed. Minutes passed. The whispers became distinct. Not just random noises. Not a trick of the wind or the vibration of the tires. Words. My name. Eli. I froze. The cab was sealed, windows up. No radio on. No co-driver. Just me. And that voice, repeating my name softly, almost tenderly, over and over. I scanned the mirrors. Cornfields on both sides. Empty asphalt. Nothing. My pulse quickened. I reached for the CB mic, fingers shaking. Breaker. Anyone out there? Static. Only static. I told myself it was exhaustion, maybe a hallucination. Maybe the long hours, the endless fields, the night pressing down. But the whispering didn't stop. It grew louder as I drove, curling around the dashboard, rattling the air vents. I tried to rationalize every way I could. Maybe someone on a nearby road, someone calling to a friend? But the words were clear. My name, my full name repeated, in cadence, in tone, like someone standing in the cab with me, leaning close to my ear. I slowed the truck, eyes scanning the black horizon. Every mile marker I passed looked wrong. Distances seemed longer. Cornfields stretched farther, bending in unnatural curves around the asphalt. The road ahead refused to feel familiar. I checked the GPS. No deviation, no unusual roads. Everything aligned. But the whispering pressed closer, brushing against the back of my skull, curling around my neck. I spoke aloud, voice trembling. Who's there? Nothing. Only my name again. Eli. 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 I grabbed the mic one more time. CB channel open. This is Eli. Anyone there? This is real. Someone answer. Nothing. By now, my heartbeat felt like a drum in the cab. Goosebumps prickled across my arms. The cab felt too small. The air too thick. My hands gripped the wheel as the whispering grew louder, forming a cadence that matched the speed of the rig. Then the CB crackled. Static at first, harsh, cutting through the whispers. And then, a voice. Don't look back. Cold. Clear. Not distorted, not human, but alive. The words slithered across the cab, echoing in my chest. I obeyed at first, eyes on the road, forward. Every instinct screamed to look, but of course I did. Nothing, just the endless dark road behind me. Cornfields swaying in a faint wind. No trucks, no lights, no figures, nothing. The whispering ceased instantly. Silence pressed in. My breath came loud, ragged. The cab smelled of ozone, faint metallic tang, like a storm trapped in the night. Tires hummed, reefer pulsed. The mirrors reflected nothing unusual. Only my rig, the night, and the faint curve of the highway stretching backward. I reached a small town shortly after midnight. Streetlights flickered over empty sidewalks. The CB remained silent, except for the last soft crackle of static that almost sounded like the tail end of that warning. I parked the rig at the local rest stop, sat with the engine off, and tried to rationalize what happened. Fatigue, hallucination, long hours, low blood sugar, any of it. But sometimes, late at night, when the rig sits parked in a quiet lot, I hear it. The faintest whisper, barely audible over the hum of the tires, the breeze, the engine, Eli, and I know in some corner of the highway, cornfields stretching endlessly, asphalt dark and empty, the highway whisperer is still there, waiting, watching, repeating my name. Every driver I tell thinks I'm joking. Maybe I am, maybe not, but I know what I heard. And I know some roads have voices you're not meant to ignore. Some roads never let go. Name's Jake Thornton. I've been on the road for over 20 years, hauling everything from frozen meat to heavy machinery. I know every mile of I-35 through Minnesota like it's etched in my hands. I know which bridges shiver under the weight of wind, which corners hold black ice in February, and which rest areas are safe after midnight. I've seen storms that would make anyone quit, and I've driven through nights so dark they felt endless. But nothing prepared me for the night I saw the phantom semi. It was late September, just after 11:30 p.m. I had a refrigerated load of produce headed north from Minneapolis toward Duluth. The rain was steady, cold, and slanted sideways across the windshield. My rig was a 2015 Peterbilt 579, headlights cutting thin lines through the dark, windshield wipers slapping rhythmically. The CB was quiet except for the occasional static hiss. Nothing unusual until mile marker 98. The highway was slick and reflective, stretching under the low, gray glow of overcast clouds. Water ran across the asphalt in thin rivulets. The smell of wet rubber and ozone clung to the cab, mixed with the faint metallic tang of the rain on steel. I kept my speed moderate, around 55 miles per hour, tires humming steadily. The reefer hummed in the background, a constant heartbeat in the otherwise quiet cab. The road was empty, or so I thought. Then, in the corner of my right rearview mirror, I caught something. A truck. A semi. At first, I assumed it was just another long-haul rig, tailing me the way others do on rainy nights. But something didn't make sense. Its lights were off. No headlights, no running lights, nothing. Just the faint outline of a trailer, ghostly against the dark. I slowed slightly, watching it mirror my movements. Every adjustment I made, it mimicked perfectly. I shifted lanes. It shifted. I accelerated. It accelerated. My stomach sank. No horn. No engine sound. Just the trailer, following silently, perfectly aligned, keeping pace with my every maneuver. I tried to rationalize it. Reflection? Exhaust cloud? Another driver testing me? I shook my head. None of it fit. My eyes darted to the side mirrors repeatedly. It didn't have the normal glow of taillights in the rain. Just that black, moving silhouette, trailer dark, tires unseen, engine silent. The CB crackled faintly. A few calls from other drivers, all ordinary. None of them reported anything unusual. I even tried calling dispatch, but all I got was static. I decided to pull over at the next turnout. My hands tightened on the wheel. I hit the brakes. Tires hissed. I took the shoulder, slowed, trying to get a clear look. It mirrored me. Exactly. Every movement. As I signaled left, it kept the same distance behind. No deviation, no pause. It didn't overtake me. It didn't stop. It just followed. A wave of cold air brushed through the cab, though all windows were sealed. Goosebumps prickled my arms. The metallic tang of ozone intensified. My reefer unit pulsed, like it sensed the tension in the night. I told myself to calm down. Rationally, I thought maybe it's my imagination, the stress of hours on slick asphalt. But I know what I saw. I accelerated, trying to lose it in the rain. The highway curved. The semi stayed aligned perfectly, shadowing my every movement. My pulse thudded in my chest. Every mile felt longer. Time stretched. Finally, I saw an exit. A small rest area, lights dim, wet asphalt reflecting faint orange glows. I signaled and veered off. Tires splashed through puddles, reefer humming faster. I glanced in the mirrors. Nothing. The phantom semi had vanished. Just like that, the air felt heavier, humid and metallic. The rain beat against the cab. I stayed there for 20 minutes, engine idling, checking every mirror, every shadow. Nothing. No sign of it ever being there. The next day, I asked other truckers if they had seen anything on that stretch. Mile marker 98, rainy night, phantom rig. No one. Zero reports. They thought I was joking, laughed it off, chalked it up to stress or exhaustion. But I know what I saw. I felt it. That black silhouette, perfectly silent, perfectly aligned, following without deviation, without sound. The way it moved, it wasn't mechanical, it was deliberate. Watching, waiting, testing me. Since that night, I avoid driving that stretch alone, especially in rain. I check mirrors constantly, even at rest stops. And sometimes, when the highway is quiet, rain slanting against the windshield, and the CB goes silent, I feel it again. The echo of a silent rig just behind me, keeping pace, impossible, untraceable. Some nights, when the wind whistles across the asphalt just right, I can almost hear the subtle hum of tires, though no vehicle is there. And I know, somewhere along that stretch of I-35, the phantom semi waits. Watching, silent, patient. Every trucker I tell thinks I'm exaggerating. Maybe I am, but I know the truth. And I'll never forget that night, the rain, and the trailer that had no lights, no engine, and no mercy. Name's Derek Mallory. I've been hauling freight across the Midwest and down the Mississippi corridor for over 20 years. I know the highways better than I know my own backyard. Every mile marker, every rest stop, every curve of asphalt etched into muscle memory. I know how trucks hum at 60 miles per hour in the rain, how CB static sounds different when a storm is rolling in. And I've seen a lot. Tornado warnings, black ice, people who shouldn't be on the road. But nothing prepared me for the night the radio knew too much. It was late August, around 1:15 a.m., when I was running a refrigerated load of canned goods from Springfield, Illinois, to a distribution hub near St. Louis. My rig was a 2013 Kenworth T680, reefer humming softly, lights cutting through the wet asphalt. The highway was slick from an earlier rain. The night was quiet, just the sound of tires on asphalt, the low purr of the reefer, and the occasional distant truck engine. CB chatter was minimal, mostly static, and a few polite check-ins. Nothing unusual until the channel I'd been monitoring suddenly came alive. The night was calm, almost unnervingly so. Cornfields stretched alongside the highway, dark and still under muted stars. The air smelled faintly of wet asphalt, ozone, and diesel. My co-driver had dropped off hours earlier, leaving me alone with the hum of the rig and my thoughts. I had roughly 3 more hours to make the hub. I flicked the CB on out of habit, scanning channels. Channel 19, my usual, was quiet except for static. Then, faintly at first, a voice cut through the white noise. Derek Mallory. I laughed nervously, thinking someone was playing a prank. Funny, considering it was 1 in the morning. Yeah. Who's this? I muttered into the mic. The static sharpened, and the voice became clearer. It was soft, almost mechanical in cadence, yet unmistakably human. Refrigerated load. 22 pallets of canned goods. Check the intersection at mile marker 112. I froze. My cargo, 22 pallets. The exact load I was hauling. My eyes flicked to the dashboard. Reefer settings normal. Tires, brake pressure, all normal. I muttered to myself, "No way." At first, I laughed it off, blaming fatigue or a prankster trucker monitoring my route. But the voice returned, this time urgent, almost panicked. "Slow down. Red pickup. Intersection 112. Stop. Accident imminent." The hair on the back of my neck prickled. I gripped the wheel tighter, scanning the road. Cornfields blurred past in the reflection of my mirrors. Rainwater splashed faintly off the tires. My cab felt colder, though the heater was on. Goosebumps prickled across my arms. I slowed to about 50 miles per hour, eyes forward. Up ahead, the road opened to the intersection. A red pickup was stopped mid-lane, unseen until that very moment. And then I saw it, vehicles colliding just ahead. I swerved, tires screeching slightly against the wet asphalt, narrowly avoiding the pileup. Heart hammering, hands trembling. I pulled to the shoulder, breathing hard. The CB fell silent. Static returned, soft and empty. I checked my mirrors, scanning for other trucks. Nothing unusual. Everything normal, except my own heartbeat in the cab. Rapid, pounding. I tried to call dispatch, thinking maybe someone had reported an accident. Dispatch? This is Mallory. Intersection 112. There was a pileup I just avoided. Static. Then a voice, shaky but calm, came through. "Derek, we don't have any record of that intersection being closed. Check the radio before the next shift. That's all we know." I stared at the mic. "What the hell?" I muttered. The voice didn't explain itself, just vanished. I replayed the moment in my mind. The exact number of pallets, the exact cargo description, the specific mile marker, the warning, all accurate, all real. I drove the next hour in near silence, replaying every detail in my head. The cornfields outside seemed taller, darker, and closer. The hum of the tires on asphalt seemed louder than usual. The reefer pulsed in a way I'd never noticed, like a heartbeat syncing with my own. I thought about turning off the CB completely, but I couldn't. I kept it on. Every static burst a tiny nerve-jangling reminder. Every channel I scanned was empty except for soft static. Nothing more. The highway stretched endlessly, the lights of distant trucks flickering occasionally in my mirrors, harmless and normal. But I couldn't shake the memory. The voice that knew my name, my cargo, my route. It had predicted the accident, saved me, warned me, and then disappeared. I finally reached the hub in St. Louis around 4:30 a.m. Traffic lights blinked lazily under streetlights. Drivers waved as I passed. Nothing out of the ordinary. My cargo was intact. Everything as it should be. I haven't touched that CB channel since. Every time I think about turning it on, I remember the voice. Precise, urgent, unexplainable. Sometimes, in quiet moments, when the rig sits idle and the tires hum softly under me, I can almost hear it again. Faint, whispering my name, describing a load I'm not even carrying at the moment, warning me of some unseen hazard. Some truckers will laugh if you tell them. Maybe it was fatigue. Maybe a prank. Maybe my mind played tricks. I've tried every rational explanation, but none fit. The night I ran that stretch near St. Louis, I realized some things are bigger than trucks, bigger than cargo, bigger than asphalt and mile markers. Some voices on the road know more than they should. Some radios are alive. I don't know why it chose me. I don't know if it's still out there. But I do know this. Every time I turn on a CB in the dead of night, I feel the weight of its unseen gaze. And I still can't shake the memory of the voice that knew too much and warned me just in time. I've been driving long enough to know when something's off. My name's Ray Mercer, 26 years on the road, mostly Midwestern routes. Nebraska through Iowa, sometimes up into Minnesota if dispatch needs me there. I haul refrigerated goods and I run solo. Always have. The road is quiet company, and after a couple decades, you start trusting the rhythms of the highway more than people. But what happened near that old Iowa truck stop? I still don't have the language for it. All I know is something moved my trailer when nothing on God's earth should have been able to. It was late fall, edging into winter. One of those nights where the wind carries the smell of dry cornfields and cold metal. I was hauling a half-load from Sioux City down toward Davenport. I'd been pushing too many hours, and by the time midnight hit, I felt that familiar weight behind my eyes. That dull, slow blink that gets guys killed. I pulled off at a small, half-dead truck stop off Highway 20. Drivers in Iowa talk about it like a rumor. The one with the broken sign and no fuel since '06. It sits alone in an expanse of dirt and cracked concrete. One flickering light over the lot, humming like it's tired of fighting the dark. I parked straight, pulled the brakes, checked my mirrors. Nothing around me except open fields and that one sickly overhead bulb buzzing against a cloudy sky. The silence out there isn't like regular silence. It has a thickness to it, like a room where someone was just talking, but left without warning. I ate something from the cooler, logged my hours, and tried to settle in for a few hours sleep. I remember hearing no wind, not a single gust. The air was heavy and still, almost metallic. When I woke up just before dawn, the world felt shifted. I always check my trailer before rolling out. Part habit, part paranoia. I've seen too many guys lose their lives because they didn't walk the 60-second loop around their rig. That morning, something punched me right in the gut. My trailer had moved. Not much, maybe 6 inches, angled just a hair to the right. But enough that anyone with experience would spot it instantly. The brakes were still locked. The ground was flat. No wind. No signs of tampering on the landing gear. Nothing. Still, I tried to rationalize it. Maybe I misjudged when I parked. Maybe fatigue was playing tricks. But that feeling, that cold rise from the spine to the back of the neck, every trucker knows it. Something was wrong. It wasn't until I walked behind the trailer that I saw the tracks. Tire marks, circling my entire rig. Perfect circles. Not from a normal truck backing up or maneuvering. These were tight, controlled, unbroken loops. Some vehicle had driven around me slowly, studying me, inspecting me. But here's what made my throat tighten. There were no footprints, no drips of fuel, no displaced gravel, and no sign of any vehicle leaving the lot. The dirt near the exit was undisturbed. Everything was still, too still. That truck stop might as well have been a painting. I left in a hurry that morning, feeling stupid for letting it get under my skin. Told myself maybe some local kids messed around. Maybe a pickup came through in the night and I just didn't hear it. But deep down, I knew I would have heard an engine. In that kind of silence, you hear everything. 2 weeks later, my route brought me back through the same stretch. Dispatch had me hauling produce again, same pickup point, similar drop. I normally avoid stopping anywhere twice in a row, superstition, but I was behind schedule and pushing dangerously close to my hourly limit. The sky was that bruised purple you get before a storm. Thunder rumbling in the distance. The smell of wet asphalt rising with the cold. I pulled into the same dead truck stop. I shouldn't have. The second my brakes hissed and the truck settled, I felt an old instinct. The kind that whispers when a road is iced over or when a deer is about to jump out of the trees. Something was watching. Not a person. Not anything with breath or warmth. Something aware. But fatigue won. The dark was heavy. And the storm was building. I crawled into the sleeper, boots still halfway laced. Sleep came hard and fast, like dropping into deep water. Around 3 a.m., I woke to a noise I still hear in my bones. A scrape. Long, slow. Metal sliding against metal. My first thought, someone trying to break in. I shot upright, heart pounding so hard the mattress vibrated under me. I listened. Silence. Then another scrape, this time from the back of the trailer. I grabbed my flashlight and stepped out into a wet, cold darkness. The storm hadn't broken yet, but the air tasted like charged wire. When I reached the back of the trailer, the beam of the flashlight shook in my hand. The trailer had shifted again, but this time a full foot. Worse, the tire tracks were back. Only now they weren't perfect circles. They were figure eights looping over themselves. Still no footprints. No sign of an engine. And the strangest part? The tracks were only an inch into the dirt, even though the ground was soft and wet. No truck tires behave like that. Not in mud. Not in rain. Not in reality. It was like the weight behind them wasn't fully there. My flashlight flickered. The air around me suddenly got colder. Not Iowa cold, but the kind of cold that feels intentional. Like something is breathing across your skin. The wind picked up for the first time all night, but it didn't come from the fields. Came from under the trailer. Slow, steady, like something crawling its way out. I crouched, heart in my throat, and aimed the flashlight underneath. Nothing, just wet dirt and shadow. But the smell, God, it was a mix of burnt rubber, ozone, and something metallic, like cold engine parts that hadn't existed in decades. Then my truck rocked, just once. A single, heavy jolt, strong enough to push me back a step. Something had touched the trailer, or leaned on it, or pushed. I didn't investigate. I didn't think. I ran around, climbed into the cab, and tore out of that lot so fast I left a spray of mud behind me. In the mirror, the overhead light flickered violently, like something passed beneath it. I never stopped at that truck stop again. But for months afterward, anytime I passed through Iowa, even miles away from that place, I'd find those tire tracks behind my trailer in the morning, circling, studying, waiting, like something that had found me once. Wasn't done. It faded eventually. Or maybe it didn't. Maybe I just stopped looking. Because some things on the road aren't meant to be understood. And when something moves a 40-foot refrigerated trailer like it's tapping a toy, you don't go back. You don't ask questions. You just keep driving and hope the tracks don't show up again. My name's Sam Keller. I've been driving big rigs for nearly 2 decades, mostly solo runs through Nebraska, Iowa, and Missouri. Over the years, I've learned to trust what I see on the highways, and, more importantly, what I don't. But some nights, some miles, the road shows you things that don't make sense. Things that haunt you long after you park the rig. It was late October, a drizzling night just outside Omaha, Nebraska. I was hauling a refrigerated load of vegetables to a distribution center near Lincoln. My rig was a 2015 Peterbilt 579. The reefer humming softly, tires slicing through wet asphalt. The rain was light at first, misting over the highway, the kind that makes the yellow lines shimmer. My headlights cut weakly into the fog rising from the fields, and I was alone. No co-driver, no traffic, nothing but the hum of the engine and the occasional CB chatter from distant trucks. I was near mile marker 47 on the stretch between Omaha and Lincoln. A flat, endless landscape of cornfields, wet mud, and dark horizons. I'd made this run dozens of times. Usually, it's nothing but the hum of tires and the distant glow of town lights in the fog. I switched my CB on out of habit. Static, then a few truckers exchanging the usual check-in, and slow traffic ahead warnings. Nothing out of the ordinary. I sipped coffee from my thermos, stared through the windshield, watching the water run across the glass, and tried to relax. But there's a certain stillness on rural highways at night that feels heavier than silence. That night, the air pressed in through the vents, cool and metallic, smelling faintly of rain on corn and wet asphalt. That's when I saw them. 2 points of light. First, I thought it was a deer, the kind that suddenly glows when headlights catch their eyes. But as I got closer, the shape didn't match. It was too tall, too thin, standing perfectly still among the cornstalks. The eyes didn't move like an animal, they didn't flinch or shift. They just watched. I blinked, tried to shake it off. Headlights, rain, fatigue, classic tricks on long solo runs. I slowed, scanning the rows with my mirrors. The eyes remained fixed on me, blinking softly as if keeping pace with the motion of my truck. A shiver ran down my spine. The temperature inside the cab seemed to drop, though the heater was on. Goosebumps prickled under my jacket, and the hum of the reefer felt different, deeper, vibrating against the steering column. I tried rationalizing it. Maybe a pair of reflective trail markers? Maybe a stump? Maybe anything normal? but the shape behind the eyes suggested something humanoid. Too thin to be a deer, too tall to be any normal animal. And then, I swear I saw it smile. I forced my eyes forward, trying not to look, focusing on the road. But the eyes followed me. Every movement, every lane change, every turn of the wheel, they blinked in sync, tracking me. I glanced at the mirrors again. For a split second, the tall, thin figure seemed reflected in my side mirror. His face, yes, it smiled. Not a friendly smile. Something about it was wrong, too wide, too deliberate, stretched almost impossibly thin. I slammed my hands against the wheel, heart hammering, sweat cold against my scalp. The rain intensified, blurring the field. But when I looked again, the figure was gone. The eyes vanished. Only the dark cornfield remained, wet and waving faintly in the wind. I tried to shake it off. Just fatigue, Sam. Just tired. I muttered under my breath. But the unease didn't leave. The CB crackled briefly. Just static, nothing else. But I felt like the noise had a rhythm, almost like breathing in time with the pounding of my heart. I kept driving, trying to focus on the horizon. Mile markers passed slowly. The rain blurred the road, headlights reflecting off the wet asphalt. Every so often, I glanced at the field, just a glimpse of shadow, gone the next moment. By the time I reached the next town, the cornfield behind me was empty, silent. No eyes, no smiling figure, just rain-soaked stalks glinting in the fading streetlights. I parked the rig at a rest stop, checking the mirrors one last time. Nothing, only the faint echo of my own breathing and the distant hum of the freeway. I took a swig of coffee, hands shaking. The memory of those eyes burned behind my eyelids. It's been months since that run. I've told a few truckers, most laughed. Some nodded politely, claiming they'd had road ghosts of their own. But I know what I saw. The shape, the smile, the way the eyes moved. It wasn't animal, it wasn't human, and it wasn't a trick of light. Every solo run through Nebraska makes me glance toward the cornfields. Sometimes, when the rig hums quietly and the wind rattles the mirrors, I think I feel those eyes at the edge of the light, watching, blinking, waiting. I haven't slept fully on a highway night since. My hands grip the wheel a little tighter. My eyes flick to every shadow. And the worst part? I know it isn't bound to one field. Could be anywhere. Waiting along the stretch of endless blacktop that stretches between towns and cornfields. Alone with a trucker who's just doing his job. Some things on the road are bigger than headlights and bigger than common sense. Some things watch when no one is looking, and some smiles are meant to haunt you forever. And I haven't stopped thinking about that one. Rainy night outside Omaha, Nebraska, and the eyes that followed me all the way to town. My name's Luke Harrison. I've been driving trucks for over 20 years, mostly long hauls across the Midwest and Upper Plains. I know the highways, the patterns, the way the night folds around a rig when you're alone. But every so often, you hit a stretch of road that doesn't make sense. And that night on I-94 was one of them. It was late March, one of those cold, wet nights where the asphalt steams under the rain. I was heading eastbound on I-94 from Minneapolis to Milwaukee, hauling a partial load of frozen meat in my 2016 Freightliner Cascadia. The CB was mostly quiet. Occasional static, a trucker here or there reporting slow traffic or weather conditions. Nothing unusual. I passed that stretch dozens of times. Wide, straight highway flanked by cornfields still brown from winter, scattered trees, and the occasional exit sign glowing like a lighthouse in the dark. My rig hummed steadily, tires slicing through the wet asphalt. Wind rattled lightly against the mirrors, a cold, metallic taste in the air. The night was quiet, almost too quiet. Normally I'd have seen another rig, headlights in the distance. But that stretch of road had been abandoned for miles. I noticed it about an hour in. My right side mirror caught a glimpse of something. At first, I thought it was another truck pulling up behind me. Headlights, shape, the usual glint of chrome. But when I blinked, nothing was there. Just the reflection of the empty highway and the wet pavement. I shook my head. Fatigue. I'd been driving long hours. Maybe my eyes were playing tricks. But a few miles later, it appeared again. A rig, Older, rusted, a 70s-era semi, faded green paint, dented doors, wheels that seemed to grind without sound. It moved as if alive, creeping along in my mirror, keeping perfect pace with me. No lights, no engine hum, nothing but the outline reflected in the glass. I turned my head, nothing. Blinked, gone. Looked back. There it was. I tried rationalizing it. Maybe a hallucination, reflection of another object. Fatigue. But over the next hour, it grew closer. Every glance in the mirror, it seemed to gain on me. Not in speed, but presence. Like it was sliding through reality to meet my pace. The CB crackled. Static. I pressed the mic. Nothing. Tried the emergency channel. Nothing. Silence. I checked the GPS. I was still on track, still alone. But I couldn't take my eyes off the mirror. It was mesmerizing, hypnotic. That rusted cab, the empty windows. And sometimes, if I stared too long, I thought I saw movement inside. Something shifting in the shadows of the cab. The temperature in the cab dropped, the heater unable to keep the cold at bay. Goosebumps spread under my jacket, fingers numb on the wheel. The vibration of the tires seemed to fade, as if the world was peeling away around the rig, leaving me alone with the reflection. By mile marker 212, I was no longer blinking or looking away. My right mirror was the world now. The rest of the highway disappeared. I swear it. No trees, no cornfields, no lights. Just the Cascadia ahead and the phantom semi behind. Every turn I took, it mirrored. Every lane change, every brake, every pulse of the tires, it followed perfectly. Like a shadow stitched to my rig. I tried accelerating, tried slowing down, tried taking the next exit. Nothing changed. The mirror was all-consuming. That rusted semi was there, closer than before, until my peripheral vision couldn't escape it. The air smelled strange, ozone, wet metal, faint diesel, but not mine. Like an engine that wasn't there. Then the CB clicked on by itself. A whisper, low and almost mechanical. Don't stop. Don't look back. I slammed my hand on the mic, static blasting. But the voice was gone. Just the rusted rig reflected in the mirror, moving impossibly, keeping pace, unblinking. The next exit loomed. I forced myself to turn. The moment I did, I braced for a glimpse behind me. Nothing. No truck. No tire tracks. No report. Just wet pavement, empty cornfields, distant headlights of the next exit ramp. I parked at the rest area, legs shaking, hands clammy. I checked every mirror, every reflective surface inside and outside the rig. Empty. Just my Cascadia, alone. I tried to rationalize it. Could have been a hallucination, exhaustion, rain playing tricks. But I know what I saw. That mirror wasn't lying. It reflected a presence. A semi that shouldn't have existed. One that could vanish at will, slip in and out of reality like it had been attached to me for hours. I called dispatch in the morning. Nobody reported any rigs on that stretch. No accidents, no sightings, just silence. Even now, months later, I drive solo stretches on I-94 and I glance at my right side mirror more than I should. Sometimes, when the rain hits the glass at night and the highway hums just right, I swear I see the faint outline again. Just for a second. Rusted. Empty. Watching. Waiting. Some nights, the vibration of my tires fades, just slightly, and my brain screams at me to check the mirror. But I don't. Because some things, some shadows are meant to ride with you unseen. I still remember that night. The whisper, the cold, the reflection that shouldn't have existed. And every time I drive alone, I can't shake the feeling that it's still back there. Following. Patient. Perfectly still in the glass behind me. Somewhere on I-94, in the dead of night, that rig waits for the next driver to catch its reflection. And I'll never forget it. My name's Ethan Ward. Been driving trucks for over 15 years, mostly Midwest runs. Indiana, Ohio, Illinois. I've seen a lot of weird things on the road. But some nights, some stretches of highway, nothing makes sense. One of those nights, somewhere outside Bloomington, Indiana, still haunts me. It was a cold, damp October night. I was rolling eastbound on a rural stretch of State Road 46, hauling produce in my 2018 Volvo VNL. The air smelled faintly of wet leaves and exhaust, and the windshield wipers kept a steady rhythm against the drizzle. The CB was quiet, just a few trucks reporting slowdowns or road construction, but nothing urgent. I was making decent time, legs sore but alert. The road stretched long and straight, framed by cornfields and darkened woods. Streetlights were sparse, only reflecting off the wet asphalt in intermittent pools of orange light. I passed a small junction, barely lit, when I saw him. A lone figure stood by the roadside, slim, wearing a dark hoodie pulled low over his face, thumb out. Standard hitchhiker stance. My first thought was caution. I didn't normally pick up anyone at night, but something about the isolation and the quiet rain made me stop. I pulled over slowly, truck brakes squealing against the wet pavement. He climbed in without a word, his eyes forward, hands resting on his knees. He didn't acknowledge me, didn't ask a destination, didn't even speak, just stared. I tried small talk. Where you headed? Nothing. You cold? Nothing. Just forward. I shrugged, figured maybe he was shy, or maybe spooked by the night. I let it go, focused on the road. The CB crackled faintly. I ignored it, tuned to the Weather Channel, just static and wind. My rig hummed beneath me, tires whispering against the asphalt. After 10 minutes, I leaned back, ready to ask him again if he was okay. That's when I glanced to the back seat. He wasn't there. I froze. Not leaning, not slouched, gone. The seatbelt was untouched. No hood, no bag, no warmth. Just the empty seat. I blinked, thinking maybe I imagined it. Checked the rearview mirror, empty cab. I slammed the brakes lightly, stopped on the shoulder, heart pounding. Hey, you okay back there? Nothing. My voice echoed against the rain, the empty cornfields, and the night. I checked the doors, locked. I peeked outside, no footprints, no mud disturbance, not even a wet mark where he might have stepped. Just rain-soaked asphalt and darkened fields. I drove back to the junction, slowly, scanning both sides. Cornfields swayed in the wind, trees rustled faintly, but no one. The roadside was empty, abandoned. I called out his name, stupidly, hoping for a laugh, a prank, something. Nothing. Silence except for the drizzle and the distant hum of my tires. Every mile, I checked the mirrors, half expecting to see him sitting there again. But the seat was empty. The cab smelled faintly of wet cloth, like he'd never been there at all. I reached the next town, tried to rationalize. Maybe I'd imagined it. Stress, fatigue, long hours behind the wheel. But that seat, the way it had felt warm, the way he had filled the space, it wasn't a dream. I even retraced the highway back and forth twice. Same junction, same empty roadside. It didn't matter which direction I drove. Nothing. No sign. No trace. The rest of the night passed in tense silence. Every shadow in the cab made me flinch. Every passing set of headlights made me check the mirrors. Nothing appeared. The CB remained quiet, aside from static and the occasional distant chatter. I finally made it to the next major highway, heart still racing. I parked at a truck stop, lights buzzing overhead, heaters humming, drivers chatting inside. I couldn't shake the feeling of eyes or presence, hovering just behind me, in the back seat. I told a few truckers what happened. They laughed, shook their heads, said I probably nodded off or hallucinated. But I know what I saw. The warmth in the seat, the presence of someone there, then gone. No doors open, no footprints, nothing human. I never pick up hitchhikers at night again. Never. Some things I've learned don't ride with you willingly, they just attach and then vanish when you look away. That night, that stretch of road, that junction, it isn't haunted with ghosts. It's haunted with the unknown, and I was lucky to escape without it following farther. Sometimes, when I drive solo on dark country roads, I glance at the back seat. A flicker, a shadow, a warmth that isn't mine. And I remember that junction, that hitchhiker who disappeared. I still feel it in the cab on long hauls, the empty seat, the memory of eyes staring straight ahead, the silence that wasn't empty. Somewhere in Indiana, at a quiet junction, the hitchhiker waits, not to get a ride, just to be seen, and then vanish, and I'll never forget him. My name is Mark Delaney, 17 years driving long-haul routes across the Midwest. I've seen bad wrecks, strange weather, even weirder people, but nothing that ever made me question my sanity. Not until that night on I-70, heading west through Indiana. This story isn't something I like to talk about, but it's been sitting with me, quiet, heavy, every time I put my hands on the wheel. And if you've run enough miles alone in the dark, maybe you'll understand why some roads feel different. It was early November, just past midnight. Cold enough that the air had that metallic bite to it. I was hauling dry goods in my 2014 Peterbilt. Old, loud, but dependable. The route was simple: Columbus to St. Louis. Night run. Light traffic. Clear sky. Dispatch had warned about mild fog patches near Richmond, but nothing major. CB chatter was normal too. Occasional jokes, weather updates, and the usual grumbling about fuel prices. I was cruising at a steady 63 miles per hour, coffee warming in the cup holder, the rumble of the engine vibrating through the wheel like a steady heartbeat. Miles of highway stretched ahead, dark trees, empty rest stops, the soft buzz of the road. Nothing out of the ordinary, at least at first. Around mile marker 148, I noticed brake lights, faint at first, then multiplying. A line of trucks, hazards blinking, all dead stop. I muttered, "Damn, must be a wreck." I slowed from 60 to 30, tapping the brakes. The air smelled faintly of burnt rubber, like someone ahead had slammed their brakes too hard. Fog drifted low over the pavement, thin, milky, rolling like it had a mind of its own. CB static hissed. I waited for someone to mention a pileup, but nothing, just silence. The trucks ahead didn't move, not an inch. No engines revving, no radios crackling, no silhouettes shifting behind headlights, just stillness, as if the whole line had been frozen mid-route. Something felt off, too quiet, too still. I leaned forward, squinting through the windshield. The trailers were old, rusted, different models. Some looked like rigs from the 80s, square noses, faded logos, mud flaps from companies that shut down years ago. My first thought was a convoy reunion or maybe a staged lane closure. But the longer I stared, the colder something felt inside me. The fog around them wasn't drifting with the wind. It hovered, almost clinging to the trucks. I eased down to 10 miles per hour, then 5. Hazards on. The steering wheel trembled under my fingers, as if the truck itself wanted me to stop. Anyone got eyes on I-70 westbound? Looks like a full stop at. Before I could finish, the whole line of trucks flickered. Not like headlights glitching, like the rigs themselves glitched. One moment they were there, solid, blocking the whole road. The next, the brake lights dimmed, the outlines warped, and the trucks seemed to stretch into the fog. Not forward, not backward, but outward, like heat mirage distortion, but colder, sharper. I blinked hard, gripping the wheel. What the hell? The nearest trailer swayed slightly, as if someone inside shifted their weight. Except there was no sound, no engine, no air brakes, no driver, just a hollow metallic groan, faint, distant. Then, in the span of one slow heartbeat, the entire line of traffic dissolved. Brake lights faded into darkness. Headlights winked out like dying stars. Shapes collapsed inward, twisting like reflections on a broken mirror. And then, the road ahead was empty. Completely empty. Black asphalt. White lane markers. Nothing else. Not a single vehicle. I slammed my brakes so hard the trailer fishtailed slightly, tires screaming. My coffee spilled. My heart hammered. But the highway stayed empty. I rolled down the window. Cold air rushed in, clean, untouched. No smell of overheating engines. No exhaust. No burnt rubber. Whatever I saw, it wasn't real traffic. It wasn't anything real at all. I backed up slowly, trying to put distance between me and where the trucks had been. My hands shook. The fog behind me looked normal, soft, drifting. I grabbed the CB. Dispatch, copy? Any reports of congestion or standstill on westbound I-70? Static. Then a voice, raspy, slow, one I didn't recognize. They're not there anymore. I froze. Who is this? The channel snapped into silence. My chest tightened. My cab felt colder. The faint smell of ozone, sharp, electric, hung in the air. I pulled up GPS. The screen glitched for a second, freezing on a distorted image of the highway, then returned to normal. No traffic alerts. My pulse wouldn't calm. I had to get off that stretch. I shifted gears, eased forward, and as I passed the spot where the trucks had been, my headlights caught something on the pavement. Tire tracks. Old ones. So old the rubber looked fossilized into the asphalt. But they didn't follow the road. They turned sharply off the highway, straight into the trees. Large, deep imprints from dozens of rigs, all cutting into the woods, all disappearing into darkness. No path, no road, just forest swallowing them whole. I didn't stop, couldn't. 5 miles later, the fog thinned. The CB crackled again. This time, my own name whispered through static. Mark. Soft. Close. Impossible. I shut the CB off entirely. Didn't turn it on again until Illinois. But before the fog cleared completely, I saw something in my mirror, just for a second. Convoy. Silent. Headlights dim. Rigs rusted and ancient. Exactly the ones I'd seen. Behind me. Following. But when I turned my head, the road behind was empty. Only when I looked forward did the mirror show them. Like they existed only in the reflection. They faded one by one until the mirror showed nothing but the night sky and the lonely stretch of I-70. Dispatch later confirmed it. No delays. No accidents. No traffic reports. No rigs anywhere near that mile marker at that time. Some truckers talk about phantom way stations, ghost passengers, loops in time on long desert roads. But what I saw on I-70 wasn't trapped in time. It wasn't replaying the past. It was something trying to manifest just long enough to be seen. A convoy that didn't belong to this road, this world, or this time. And every time I check my mirror on a foggy night, I half expect to see those brake lights again. Silent. Still. Waiting. I still don't know what they were. But I know this. The next time that traffic appears, I won't slow down. I've been driving rigs across the Midwest for over 20 years, hauling everything from frozen produce to construction steel. My name's Mike Dalton, and I've seen my fair share of oddities on the road. Lights that flicker where no one should be, trucks that appear out of nowhere. But nothing quite like the night I ran I-55 through central Illinois. It was late October, past midnight, the kind of darkness that swallows everything. I was hauling a refrigerated load of dairy products, 18 wheels screaming down an empty highway, when it first appeared. A strange, white light far behind my trailer. At first, I thought it was another truck, maybe a service vehicle trailing me. My mirrors caught the glow intermittently, bouncing off the wet asphalt from the recent drizzle. But there was no shape to it. No cab, no trailer, nothing but a pure, unnerving light. I squinted through the rain-streaked mirrors, trying to catch headlights, but the glow didn't behave like any truck I'd ever seen. It moved differently, smooth, deliberate, almost alive. I told myself it was a reflection, maybe a farm light from a field. I increased speed slightly, and the light mirrored me. I slowed, and it slowed. Every turn, every rise and fall in the highway it followed, perfectly synchronized. My stomach tightened. I checked the CB, calling out over the static. Anyone behind me? Heavy white glow. Silence. Just the hiss of the static and my own heartbeat. I shook my head, telling myself I was imagining things. Fatigue, maybe. Long hours on the wheel will play tricks on you. But the light didn't tire. The wind whistled around my cab, rattling the windshield wipers in uneven rhythms. My hands gripped the wheel so tightly my knuckles ached. The smell of diesel mixed with wet asphalt and ozone from the rain hitting the power lines. The air felt heavy, metallic. Goosebumps prickled along my arms. crawling under the fluorescent glow of the rig's interior lights. I glanced again at the mirrors. The light had moved closer, no longer far behind. It hovered at the very edge of my trailer, yet never so close that I could see a source. I flashed my brights, but the glow didn't flicker or shift. It was patient, deliberate, almost sentient. I tried shaking it off by focusing on the road, humming to myself, reminding myself I'd hauled through fog, storms, and deer crossings. Nothing prepared me for this. I called dispatch, my voice tight. "Dispatch, this is Dalton. I'm about 10 miles south of Lincoln. I'm being followed by something. I don't know. White light, no shape, static." Then a faint reply, "Check your rear mirror and keep on schedule." That's all we have. No help, no reassurance, just a clipped voice that sounded strained, almost like they didn't want to hear it. My eyes darted back to the mirrors. The light stayed. I reached for the CB again, but it wasn't my voice that came through. A whisper, low and urgent. "Keep driving. Don't slow. Don't look back." I slammed my hand down on the mic, half expecting someone on the other end to respond. Silence. Just the hum of the rig, the tires slicing through wet asphalt, and that unholy glow tracing every movement. I glanced over my shoulder. Nothing. No one in the seat behind me. No shadows, no reflections. Just the empty cab and my racing heartbeat. By now, rational explanations were failing me. Headlights bouncing off fog? No fog. Other vehicles? The road was dead. My mind screamed for normalcy. Maybe another driver, an unmarked patrol? But no. My GPS had me alone on a stretch of highway that had no service station for miles. The light moved with precision, almost aware of my maneuvers. I pushed the rig past 70 miles per hour, then 75. Every curve, every rise, the light followed. Not lagging, not rushing, matching me perfectly. My mirrors began to distort. The edges rippled, as if reality itself was bending. I blinked hard, thinking it was fatigue, yet the light remained, stubborn, relentless. My breathing grew ragged. I reached the first exit I could, the tiny town of Atlanta, Illinois. Lights from houses and street lamps bled into the highway, but the glow didn't fade. Only when I rolled down the street into the town proper did it finally vanish, leaving only the reflection of ordinary traffic in my mirrors. I parked at the local diner, hands shaking. Inside, the warmth and smell of coffee and frying bacon felt alien. I tried telling the waitress what I saw. She smiled politely, assumed I was joking. I didn't push it. Nobody believed truckers' stories unless you had proof. By the time I returned to the highway the next morning, that stretch of I-55 was just another quiet, empty road. GPS showed nothing unusual. Dispatch had no reports of white lights or mysterious vehicles. Nothing. But I know what I saw. Even now, months later, when I drive solo and night falls, I check my mirrors. Every time a shadow shifts or a reflection plays tricks, my heart skips. I haven't seen it again, but I feel it. The idea that something out there, unseen and patient, is capable of following, waiting, watching. That white glow didn't belong to this world, but it understood highways, trucks, and the rhythm of a driver's life. I'll never forget it. The memory of that light, silently pacing my rig, mirrors my every movement, will stay with me. I still drive that stretch sometimes, just to reassure myself that I'm alone. And every time the CB goes quiet on a long, empty night, I feel a shiver crawl along my spine, and I can't help but glance at my mirrors, half expecting that patient, unearthly light to be right there, keeping pace. I never slowed for anything after that. Not a deer, not a storm, not even fatigue. Some things are better respected at full speed. And I still hear the faintest whisper in the wind, as if the highway itself warns, "Don't stop, don't slow, don't look back."